Welcome back to AsArt with Nick, John, and our expert Kyle. We post 3 videos a week. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Go to asart.space for audio and video links. All right, guys, we're on our second to last episode of season 2 of the Subtle Knife book, or however you want to put it, but we're almost to the end. We are almost to the end. Do you guys want to do a quick recap, or do you guys just want to jump into it?
Yeah.
Okay, a quick recap. Will and Lyra meets up with Serafina Pecula. Am I right? Yeah.
Correct. You are correct, Nick.
And then with the other 2 witches, and we saw some angels in the distance. So one of the witches left to go follow the angels. And we see Mrs. Coulter in the city controlling specters with her mind.
The specters, yeah.
And we end with Lee Scoresby. And what's Will's dad's name again?
Well, Joe Parry, or also Will
Joseph Perry in the sky being chased down by some Zeppelins. All right, let's jump into it. Any standout moments from you guys, or anything you guys just want to jump right into and tear apart, or just compliment, whatever you guys want to do.
You know,
But
oh no, go for it, John.
I just love how the specters look. I think they look so. I mean, I'm assuming that's Houdini stuff.
Very fluid.
Software application. They're comping those in. But I mean, it could have been a bunch of other stuff too. I mean, they look so good. And then it was just cool. I think the last couple episodes, not this one, the last couple were probably I liked a little bit more. This is a really cool episode. A lot of forwarding. So Kyle, we know you've got thoughts. You're our expert. Go ahead and rip on in.
So very much this episode was a calm before the storm. I feel we get a lot of building escalation towards what I think is going to be a pretty climactic end to season 2, right? I also like that they are staying very true to revealing the angels in 2 different ways, right? One in which how they're portrayed in the book, you can't really see them clearly during the day, right? And also when they saw them at night, when they can be seen much more easily, they're way off in the distance, so we don't get to see them yet. So I get a feeling we're going to get, this is a prediction, we might get to see a reveal of an angel up close and distinct in the last episode.
Agreed, because there's a big moment. There's a big moment coming up where everyone, it's kind of like Snatch. You know, in the movie Snatch, you have everyone's stories, and then everyone gets like involved in a car crash kind of thing. It's like a car crash is about to happen, and everyone's gonna collide.
Compare that to the movie Snatch. I can't pull up bloody pikeys. This will get messy. They better bring the accents and the comedy in this last episode.
You know
coming up.
You're spot on about the angels thing too, because like throughout the book and stuff. Some certain characters are only able to see them like with moonlight or in shadow, or if it's misty, or like like with smoke from a fire. Like there's very like, and it's even like too. It sounds like if you look like away from them, you see them better with like your peripheral vision too. It's really cool the way like the angels are described and stuff in the book. So I'm super stoked to see it on screen. There's a lot of things I can't wait to see too for the next book too. I'm just super excited that this world is out there with the visual effects and the visuals and stuff. The specters looked incredible. You see like the fluid effects in the sky and all that stuff. It looked so good. Oh, one thing though, me and Kyle were talking about. I thought we were going to see a connection though with Lee to the story when he looks down and he sees all the specters, but I thought it was going to be the brother. But man, I thought it was so cool they connected it with Mrs. Coulter's storyline. Like, because in the book that it's not connected that way at all in the book. It's completely different in the book, and it was so cool that they connected it to the story that way. I just thought that was so cool.
And you guys keep talking about angels. It's funny, before we actually started rolling and recording here, Nick's like, oh, I want to talk about, oh no, John's on the call. John's on the call. Like, they're trying not to spoil it for us. I appreciate that. But the angels, I'm like, what are those? The blue angels flying off in the distance? Or those jets? I can't see anything. They're like, they're the angels. I'm like, oh, are they? Yeah. Are they?
So technically in the book, we see the story. I mean, this could happen next episode too, where we get to see what happens when the witch follows them. And you know, like in the book, like that's like halfway through book 2. That whole thing that happened right there with the angels and the witches seeing it, I think that's like halfway through book 2. but
Yeah.
it's everything's kind of pushed back with the witches storyline, but everything's now catching up to the book. I feel like we're seeing some stuff that isn't in the book, and it's kind of like the show doing their own thing. But I'm really happy. I kind of know where they're gonna end the season, and I think it's gonna be like the perfect ending to a season. It's gonna be like The Empire Strikes
More-
Back. What's up?
More to the witches. I've got a question for you guys. It seemed the interaction between Lyra and Serafina Pekkala was like they were just meeting each other almost.
Yeah. So
like I got that sense. I forget in the season, did they even meet at all? Like I can't
thought
remember.
they met on the airship.
Okay.
Remember
right.
how they were on the airship, and then like the bat things come after them, and she ends up falling off.
What
Yes,
do the bat
yeah.
things look like? Show us what the bat things look like,
The
Nick.
bat things. It's so funny. Those bat creatures have
Right.
voices in the book. I think there's a whole
Wow.
sequence where like I don't want to spoil it just in case it's going to be in the next episode, but there might be
So,
because
sorry,
in the trailer
were we
I think I
asking
saw
about the
some
witches?
bats, so we might actually see some bat stuff. So
You mean
yes,
the
cliff gas. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
They actually have
Yeah.
their own religion and voice and everything. It's really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
So what were we asking about the bats, though? You were asking something. I don't think I interrupted you before.
Oh,
Kyle
I was
could
just
answer.
reminding you guys, I believe Serafina Pekkala, oh my gosh, was in the balloon with Lyra, Roger, and Lee. Remember after they saved them from the thing in the north, and then she ends up falling out, and that's when her whole storyline happens with the polar bear. Because remember, she gets captured. And so in the show, I believe it happens that way, but I thought they met. I'm getting my book and the show kind of confused. I think like with the past storylines, like what's actually happening. So no, I'm not. Obviously, I'm not because I'm really failing here.
I was just.
I wanted to ask, what was that? Great, I already forgot what I was going to ask. I try to be patient, wait for Nick to finish, and I forget. You know it's going to come back. All right, Kyle, talk. All right, just
Okay, I'm sorry, John. Yeah, so the reason I brought that up is just because in the books we already have an established relationship. Like Serafina Pekkala and Lyra already have at least some sort of like closer connection. And with this, Serafina Pekkala seemed to be this unknown to Lyra, right? She was sort of like very curious about her and stuff, and so I was just like, that's kind of weird because I would expect them to be more warm around each other at this point in the story, but I mean, I understand there's other things that took precedence.
So I did want to ask as well. I was going to ask. Don't interrupt me, Nick. But so in this story, you had told me, I think last week, that the scientist that travels from, I guess, the closest to our world, to help Lyra, the book ended there, right? Or that was the end. She walked through the portal and that was it. In this episode, she didn't play a big role, but she had some interactions with the two girls and things like that. Was that in the book, in the third book, or is this new material they created for the show? Is there any?
It's pretty much new material for the show. I think what they're doing is they're trying to have more stuff happen at that set location for shooting. Because like in the book, I think there's more traveling that happens, and I think they're just trying to keep it to one familiar area for us, as that's like the portal between places and stuff. So I think we're gonna come back here even next season to this. I just think it's such a beautiful town and set, and they probably just love shooting there so much. Like, because there was a lot of story plot things that happened this episode that wasn't supposed to happen there. Like Mrs. Coulter doesn't do the poison there. That happens like in a tent alongside a river somewhere, and but I mean, I think they're just keeping it all in that city. I think they took a part of the scientist's storyline from the third book at the beginning and gave it to the kids, maybe instead of like adults and stuff that happens within the book, just to get the story moving a little bit faster. But Kyle, it looked like you had a really important expertise thing to say.
No. I just wanted to say that I actually really liked what they did with Mary Malone's scene with the two kids, predominantly because one thing they haven't shown a lot of, that they showed a little bit, is the human cost of how the human cost and how society has changed because of the specters, right? And the different how the value exchange with human life versus adult and children's life has changed. Because in the books, the witches see a catastrophe happening from above, right, where they're attacking this caravan of people. All the adults like put the children in front of them, and the witches are viewing this. They're like, "This is horrible. Why would they treat their children against these monsters?" And it turns out, they're just going for the adults, whereas the children, even though they're not being hurt, they're seeing their parents being killed in front of them, right? It's a horrific experience. And with Mary Malone's scene in this one, you at least get to see sort of like the cost it's taken, at least on the children, right? They're like, "Hey, like, do you want to?" They're asking her to be there, right? Because they've been without those for a while, and you
those grown up things.
Yeah. And they've they have a desire for that, and it's pretty sad.
It is a really sad reality. Yeah, that's true.
I thought it was a cool moment because they had the whole kid gang. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. But when the girl who had just tried to kill Lyra and Will, she's like, "Can I have a hug?" I'm like, "Oh, like you just want a hug? Okay, you can put your pretty boo boo. You don't get a hug." But I thought that was kind of a cool moment. It's like, okay, it reminded me these are just regular kids. They're running around like Lord of the Flies, no parental supervision. It's like, but it's good. So in the books, do they go with the scientists?
No, but in the books, there's supposed to be a much more brutal chase scene, right, Kyle? There's pistols, there's rifles, they're chasing them up this tower thing, and
it's like the Alamo.
It really is. Yeah, it really is like the Alamo. And then like there's even a point where they try to cut to get away, but they forget they're like 3 stories up, and when he cuts, he just sees like the city from down below. They're like, "Oh no, like we can't even jump through the portal and stuff." Like there was so much more story than them just crawling to the roof and then the witch coming in and saving them, I feel like. So they really condensed that whole sequence, because that's when I was like, "John, it's going to get crazy with the kids, man. They got pistols last episode." I'm all getting them all prepped like, "Dude, man, it's going to be crazy."
Yeah, I was like, okay. Like Gatling guns, Tommy guns. All right, here we go. And then they had a couple sticks. Good job, Nick.
Yeah, I was getting ready for a Lord of the Flies scenario.
Exactly. Like, I have the punch, I speak, Lord of the Flies. That's good story, man. Jeez.
So let's talk about how cold Mrs. Coulter is. Like, talk about like after killing her victim with poison, she still sips tons of bottles of wine right there next to the dead body. Like, that's so intense, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh, that was just so intense. And how intense was it? She like shut off her monkey.
Yeah.
Shut up.
To be a little bit more eloquent than that, Nick. She as to paraphrase what she said, she turned off the thing that makes her human in order to interact.
A monkey
with the
makes her human. You know what I'm saying?
In a lot of ways that makes figurative and literal sense.
Yeah, and it's I really like that actress. I gotta remember her name, but she does such a good job portraying like even fear walking up, but then no fear, then strength, and like just all the different emotions she hit just on that sequence of walking and turning around and stuff. I was just so impressed. Like, and then I wanted to go back to, so there was a lot of like tension with the group. And I don't remember there being that much tension in the book. I remember like Lyra and Will being like the bestest and closest buddies when they were like camping out with the witches. I don't remember too much like frustration, and I know he was in pain, but it was more like he kept to himself and stuff. But there was like a lot of good connection points that happened and stuff like that between them when they were camping. And it just felt so weird that they almost tried to like pin them against each other a little bit. I feel like in this episode where like I get like he's frustrated and he's in pain and stuff, but it seemed like they were really pushing for like a split for them to like go separate ways for a moment. And it could have just been for tension for the episode, like go with the witches and Will goes on his own or something like that. But
I want to say it's tension for the episode because in the book it's really cerebral. They're very much in their own head, and it's hard to portray, in a visual format. And so they need to portray that in some other way,
and keep it interesting too, right? I mean,
and like you see a lot of doubt in Will or just like frustration, right? But Lyra is actually there, and she's actually pretty understanding, And by the end, especially when they're sitting together on the cliff, you do see them reconcile that, right? And you still know that their bond is still strong and growing, right? So I like that.
So I gotta ask. So just for clarification, so when Mrs. Coulter was controlling the specters or whatever, so it was her demon she was able to cut off at that moment. Is that what you're saying, or am I not supposed to know that?
Technically, we don't know how she talks to the specters in the book, right?
So this is my theory. Just kind of
This is our expert's theory. Okay, so this is not just a theory. This is expert theory.
So just understanding a little bit of what I know about demons and what they represent in Lyra's world, right? So remember that a demon is like a part of your soul or like your conscience, right? And we've seen also just in the series in general how Mrs. Coulter can separate herself from her demon, especially in last episode, right? Yeah. She was able to leave it behind like a witch does, right? Which is supposed to be very unnatural for typical humans. So we know that she is able to put a wall between herself and her conscience, so she can be almost like raging id, right? It's kind of interesting. And so here she just does the same thing. She just puts it into action to facilitate a specific goal she has in mind, right? Because I would imagine that the specters, if they're going to consume someone, well, no, that wasn't right. I was going to say they would consume the demon, but no, because we saw them attack the witch in this episode, and they didn't go for the demon right away.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting, huh? But that might have also just been for more of a visual effect, too.
All right. So I am super stoked for the last episode. So basically, what I got to say is this is going to be an Empire Strikes Back sort of episode. All right. We know we're going to be like in the middle of the story. We're getting some high and low points. That's all I got to say, and I'm super excited for it.
I know there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be happening, and oh man, it's going to be so good. It's gonna end on such a good note too to get us ready for season 3. Question: do you think they're going to split the third book into 2 different seasons? Do you think there's
only if they're?
I mean, do you think there's enough content to split it into 2 different seasons?
That's a good question, because they definitely could have extended this season a bit longer to cover some of the other stuff that was passed over. So maybe you might have something there, but I don't know. They've been pretty good.
How long are the books?
I think the third book's the longest book. I think the second one is the shortest. Like hours wise, I think the first one's about.
Oh, because you did.
Yeah, the first one's 10 hours. The second one's like 9 hours, and I think the third one's like 14.
Correct.
Oh, so significantly longer. Okay.
Yeah. And I think the third one, I'm only in so far, and it uncovers a lot of information. Like you get dumped, like information dump like crazy. Like the characters get information dump. They're asking the right questions to the right things. Or
the shroud is parted.
There's a lot of good info going on all sides. Like they drop so many truth bombs and like stuff hits the wall fast and it goes crazy. John, what about you? As being a viewer, are you excited for season 3?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for season 3. And again, I don't know why, but I like it more knowing it has they're doing 1 season per book, basically, because I know they already have the arc and the story all planned out. Obviously, bringing it to a show is a difficult task, kind of transitioning that. But I like that it's not just going to go on for 8 or 10 seasons, So like that, I'm really looking forward to, because it's when you have that literary source, I think it helps a lot. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what all this stuff is about the angels and just all the different, because they've established all these great characters at this point, and I'm just curious to see where they're going to go. They're not afraid to kill off characters. Obviously, if you kill it off in the book, they need to kill it off in the show as well. But that guy had played a big role, and he's poisoned. How rude! How rude! But yeah, so I'm super looking forward to seeing where things go.
Yeah, and I love that too, book and show wise. It just shows how badass, mean Mrs. Coulter is too. And I think the show's exploring her character arc more than the book did at this point, and it's really cool. It's so cool. Even seeing her play with the fire, to previous episodes of her being separated from her demon, like she literally locks her demon in a room, drives in a car across the city, and just like, dang, this girl's savage, man. I mean, like,
Yeah, she's been, I think, probably. 1 second, my camera is kicking. All right, so she's probably been my favorite character development in the last 3 or 4 episodes, because you've gotten a lot of development in her. You got hints of her past, you've gotten hints of how she's been kind of suppressed, and she had a rough, growing up in childhood, and she loves Lyra, but she's, kind of still has that hate. And it's like, she'd be a perfect Sith. Like, she'd turn from a good Padawan to killing all the younglings.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm also really excited. They're really teasing Lyra's other name in the prophecy, and I can't wait. It's going to be name dropped in this next episode. We know it is, Kyle, because of the books, and it's going to be fantastic. Truth bomb.
It's really that big of a deal? I mean, this better be the best name ever.
I mean, to be honest, they essentially said it.
I know. If you haven't caught it by now, John, you're just far behind.
Any modicum familiar with biblical connotations, then it should.
I know. I was like totally like hinting at John so he can get it, and he was just staring at me last time. I'm like, "There's a serpent. It's a Bible story." He's just like,
I was like, I don't want to know it's Snake Slayer or Serpent Slayer. I don't want to know. I don't.
So
want
funny.
To know.
He's just like,
no.
Like,
yeah, I'm like trying like.
On that note, John, lead us out of here.
All right, you guys. So we made it through another episode without Nick, keeping his mouth shut about the next episode. Thank you to our special expert guest, Kyle, for joining us. Check out AsArt.space for all the audio and video links, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.
Yeah.